Hello and welcome to the dungeon. I'm your host Rob. In today's video we're going to be taking another look at Rogue Fighter, and last time we went with a ranged build. Today we're going to be looking at a melee focused build, and I do think that the subclasses for each of these are very malleable. You've got a lot of good choices, and there's really a lot of ways to do what we're trying to do in this video. There's a lot of ways to get to the desired effect, but I do think that for the fighter, my best choice is probably going to be Battle Master. And for the rogue, I'm either looking at, say, Arcane Trickster, if I want to use like a green flame blade or a booming blade as my attack. And I could cast that spell, use that as my action, and do my sneak attack dice on top of that. And you can really do a lot of damage. Or if I wanted more of that Princess Bride, Three Musketeers, like that style, then I think Swashbuckler is excellent. But I've done Swashbuckler in a bunch of other videos, and I really like Swashbuckler, to be honest. But really, any of them I think are pretty good. Scout's good, Assassin's good. There's really not a lot of bad choices to be made there either. I do think that there are multiple ways to get to where we're looking at, even with the fighter. So, and with the rogue as well. Let's just mention that really quickly. Like, even if you wanted to go with a booming blade or a green flame blade, there's nothing stopping you from going high elf as your race, using your free cantrip that you get as a high elf, and taking that booming blade, and then going swashbuckler. You don't need to go arcane trickster just to pick up, booming blade. And there's things like magic initiate. You could do it that way as well if you really had your heart set on it. So there are other ways to accomplish it. I just think that Arcane Trickster is really solid in general, and so is, some of the other options. So it's definitely the least worth mentioning. As far as fighter options, like I said, Battle Master is going to be the most straightforward, most obvious, and probably the most effective still. It's not, maybe not the most creative, but it's probably the best way to do what we're trying to do here. But there are some other options as well. The main thing I'm looking at is to try to find ways to get in my sneak attacks on turns other than my own, right? So I'm looking to use like a riposte. I'm looking to use something like, say, a feigning attack and turn my, maybe I didn't have an ally within 5 feet and I didn't have advantage, so I wasn't eligible for a sneak attack. Now I can give myself advantage and sneak attack that way. That's really what I'm looking for, is ways to turn regular attacks or no attacks into potential sneak attacks still. But you could do that with, like, say, the Martial Adept feat. I personally think that going Battle Master is just a way better option. But if you really had your heart set on something else, you could take that feat. There's also the Superior Technique Fighting Style from Tasha's, where you could pick up the maneuver that way and grab like riposte. Also very solid. It means you're not going to have a different fighting style. But again, maybe you really had your heart set on something else. And then you could combine it with, Champion or Eldritch Knight or Samurai is a great pick, actually. I think it's called Fighting Spirit, the level 3 Samurai ability, where you can give yourself advantage, can help to overcome a lot of these problems that we have on rogues, where maybe we didn't have advantage, so we couldn't sneak attack, or we didn't have an ally within 5 feet, or whatever else, or maybe we had disadvantage because we were blinded and we can't counter it, Now, with the Samurai ability, you could be countering it. Just give yourself advantage. You don't care if you have an ally within 5 feet. You don't care if you had disadvantage. Now you attack normally. Whatever, right? So that is a nice option. But to be fair, feigning attack could do the same thing. So, like I said, I'm mostly looking at 3 or 4 levels of fighter. I would consider going as high as 6 if we weren't going to be using Green Flame Blade or Booming Blade, though. But that's probably more of a high-level campaign, because really then we're just looking for more feats would be the main thing, and the extra attack. But if I'm using my attack action to cast a spell, I'm not going to be able to extra attack anyway, so, I don't really care about that. Also, we could be using something like, say, 2-weapon fighting and extra attacks better, but, let's not forget that the deeper we go into fighter, the less sneak attack dice we have. We're also going to be giving up on things like our 17th level rogue feature, potentially, and all the higher level rogue abilities, some of which are pretty good. So I do think that 3 or 4 levels works perfectly fine. So Fighter. Usually, if I'm starting fighter, it's because I wanted proficiency on constitution saving throws, and thus concentration saving throws, or I wanted the heavy armor. I don't necessarily need either one of those in this character. Even if I want arcane trickster, I might not really care about maintaining concentration on a lot of spells, right? So I'm probably just going to start rogue and get the bonus proficiencies, because why not? And then come back into fighter level later. Fighter does bring a lot though, even aside from the armor and things like that. Level 1, you're going to get your bonus action heal, second wind. It doesn't scale with your overall levels, it scales with your fighter levels, so it's not going to be a big, huge heal. But it is a bonus action, and as an emergency heal, it's not bad, you know. If you're in a pinch, you've got a bonus action heal. It's not even a main or full action, it's just a bonus action. And I do think that's pretty good. You're also going to get your fighting style. And like I said, you could take something like Superior Technique, but you could also just take something like, say, 2-weapon fighting, or even Duelist, and then you could use a shield with it because you've got fighter levels now. That's not bad either, you know. And I do think there's, you know, a decent number of options these days that a fighting style is kind of a big deal. And for only a 1-level committed fighter, it's pretty good. Of course, at level 2, you're going to get Action Surge, one of the best abilities in the entire game, in my opinion. And at level 3, you're going to get your subclass feature, or subclass and its features. So, I already mentioned Riposte. The 3 that I'm probably going to pick up, number 1 is definitely Riposte. I think the other 2 are a little more debatable though, but I decided to go with Feigning Attack and Precision Attack. So let's just run through those really quickly for the sake of being complete, I guess. Riposte. When a creature misses you with a melee attack, you can use your reaction and expend 1 superiority die to make a melee weapon attack against the creature. If you hit, add your superiority die to the attack's damage roll. The extra damage is not bad. It's not really why we took it. But, you know, we are missing out on a few sneak attack die from the rogue because we took some fighter levels. So this does compensate a little bit for that. Not a bad thing. The main thing, though, is that the way sneak attack works is you can only make the sneak attack once per turn. So you get your turn, you attack. If you met the qualifications, you can sneak attack. But now it's somebody else's turn. So let's say, in this example, whatever the target is attacks you, misses, and thus you can use one of your superiority die to try to riposte it. And if you hit, you can now do that sneak attack again, because it's no longer your turn. It's now somebody else's turn. And this basically gives you the chance to just double up those dice. And, you know, nothing wrong with that. Now, I mean, granted, you've only got the 4 dice. You're charged on a short rest. But that's not bad. If you have a couple encounters, you could be using 2 superiority die per encounter and just doing a bunch of extra damage. The only real limitation, in my opinion, is that the thing has to attack you and miss. If it hits you, you're not eligible. If it doesn't attack you at all, you're not eligible. But that's where some of these others come in. Feigning Attack. You can expend 1 superiority die and use a bonus action on your turn to feint, choosing 1 creature within 5 feet of you as your target. You have advantage on your next attack roll against that creature this turn. If that attack hits, add the superiority die to the attack's damage roll. The main thing here is that you can give yourself advantage, because maybe you didn't have an ally within 5 feet, and then you weren't eligible for sneak attack, right? Now you are, because you can just give yourself advantage. Another thing is that maybe you did have an ally within 5 feet, but maybe you were disabled by like a darkness spell, or you were hit with a blind deafness spell, or something along those lines. Something that gave you disadvantage, and now you can't sneak attack when you otherwise would have been able to. You could use this to counteract the disadvantage and counter it out. And now you're eligible for a sneak attack again because you had an ally within 5 feet. You don't have disadvantage, right? You know, again, we're just taking opportunities when we normally wouldn't have been able to sneak attack, and now we're just kind of getting more chances to do it. The third one is Precision Attack that I'm looking at. When you make a weapon attack roll against a creature, you can expend 1 superiority die to add to the roll. You can use this maneuver before or after making the attack roll, but before any effects of the attack are applied. Obviously, the main thing here is that we're going to be able to potentially turn a miss into a hit. The thing is, though, that it is just potentially, right? Let's say with all your modifiers and your dice roll, you have a 12, but you know that you need to hit a 15 in order to hit this guy. You know, if you roll a 1 or a 2, you just wasted your superiority die and didn't manage to do anything. But, I mean, otherwise you just missed completely and didn't get to do anything anyways, right? So you could potentially turn that miss into a hit, and because you're a rogue, that's going to be a pretty hard hit, you know? Especially if you added, like, you know, your precision attack damage on top of that. You get your sneak attack damage. Maybe you had a booming blade or a green flame blade that you cast, and assuming that you're level 5 or higher, that's now doing extra dice of damage on top of everything else. You know, I mean, you're hitting pretty hard. You really don't want to be missing a lot. And especially with the rogue, where you know, a fighter, like a pure fighter, right? By the time they're like level 11 plus or even level 20, they're doing a lot of damage, but it's coming in like kind of smaller chunks, right? They're making up for it in volume. You are doing all your damage in just one big hit, and you really just kind of need to hit with that attack. Otherwise, you know, you don't have a second chance to make it up usually. Maybe you use 2 up in fighting. That could give you an offhand attack potentially. But, you know, then that's just eating up your bonus action essentially every single turn. Which, you know, is not the worst thing in the world. But just saying, you know, as a rogue, you have a lot of things you can do with the bonus action. So, you know, maybe you don't want it to be committed every turn. So that's the main idea there. I'm looking to just get an extra sneak attacks whenever possible, right? And just do more damage than ever kind of thing. So that's like the general core. I want to take a look at feats, assuming your campaign allows feats. The first feat I'm looking at is going to be Sentinel. And the main reason is for the same thing as Riposte. Now if somebody makes an attack against an ally within 5 feet of me, I can use my reaction to attack them back. And just like with Riposte, I'm going to be making an attack on somebody else's turn, and that's going to give me an opportunity for more sneak attack dice. Now, this does conflict with Riposte in the sense that they're both using my reaction. But, you know, this also gives me just more opportunities to do it, because now they don't have to attack me and miss. If I'm up in the front lines near the fighter, for example, let's say our party has a fighter, and somebody attacks him, I can use my reaction and attack back. If they attack me and miss, I can use my reaction and attack back. The only time I'm really screwed is if they attack me and hit. But, you know, I got evasion, I got stuff like that. Well, I'll be run tiny dodge, whichever the one is that halves the damage on the one attack. You know, we'll be fine. We got a bonus action heal. You know, don't worry about us. We'll be good. We'll be good. Either way, though, I'm going to be doing a lot of damage. So Sentinel is definitely one of the feats that I'm most looking towards on this kind of character. I might want to consider something like, say, Warcaster. Usually, I take Warcaster because I'm looking to maintain concentration on my saving throws, or get advantage on my concentration saving throws. If I want the Arcane Trickster route, that might still be a priority, but it might not be. The main thing, though, is that if I took the Booming Blade or Green Flame Blade route, and I'm probably going to go Booming Blade because of this thing I'm about to mention. If somebody moves away from me in combat, I can use an opportunity attack, and instead of making a weapon attack, I can choose to use a cantrip instead. That cantrip could be my Booming Blade spell. So now I'm still going to get that extra attack in, and if I hit and they continue to move, they're going to be taking the Booming Blade damage on top of everything else, and they're already taking a truckload of damage. But now they're moving, you know, so that's pretty good. But it's only good if we went the Booming Blade or Green Flame Blade route. Which, you know, maybe we did, right? Worth mentioning, though. If we didn't go Battle Master, then obviously the Martial Adept feat might be worth considering. Maybe you just wanted to go pure Rogue, but you decided, hey, I'm going to take this feat just so I can riposte a couple times. You know? Not the worst thing ever. I think Battle Master is probably the better way to go, but whatever. Maybe your DM allows feats but doesn't allow multiclassing. Yeah, worth considering. Another one, if I want Elven Accuracy is still worth considering. It's not as good in this build as it was with the ranged build, where we could always take the opportunity to aim. anytime we wanted, essentially, and then just shoot with our bow, right? And just basically always attack with advantage if we wanted, and then turn that into super advantage because of elven accuracy. But if I went elf and I started with an odd dex score, it's still pretty good. You know, it means that things like my fainting attack are going to be even better options, where now I could be rolling 3 dice on that advantage instead of only 2. You know, not a bad call. Either way, I'm probably going to look at Sentinel as my number 1 option, unless I really need to get my dexterity up. But, you know, one nice thing about combining Rogue with Fighter is you're going to have a lot of ability score increases. You're not really going to be missing out on anything, because Rogues get a bonus 1. If you took 6 levels of Fighter, they get a bonus 1 at level 6. So either way, you're going to have a lot of feats to choose from. And then things like the mobility feat and the toughness feat, of course, are always good options. The alert feat is a great option, especially if you want swashbuckler and you don't have to worry about having an ally within 5 feet. Then going really fast is not a big deal at all. And swashbuckler is already going to have a great initiative because they get to add their charisma bonus to their initiative rolls, plus their dex bonus. So I think that those are, you know, the usual complements of feats I'm looking for along those lines. As for, like, I think the racial choices really don't matter that much. I'm mostly, if I wanted to go with elven accuracy, or if I wanted to get booming blade for free, then obviously high elf's gonna be good. And elf is just a great race for rogues in general. But I don't think we need to, you know, by any means, we don't need to limit ourselves to just going elf. Like, there's so many great options these days that, you know, just pick whatever you felt like playing. Maybe you wanted to be a halfling. Nothing wrong with that. The halfling luck ability where you can reroll 1s, it's amazing how often, you know, you could have just completely missed, done nothing. All of a sudden you get to reroll and, you know, turn it into a big hit. And it's just a complete momentum changer. It's a great ability. But, you know, look, there's so many these days, and you can make your own custom ones, you know, going human and starting with an extra feat right off the bat. Nothing wrong with that. You could start with Sentinel, you know. So I think that there's just a ton of great options these days. So that one's not really as big of a deal as it used to be. Anyways, that's everything I have for this video. Feel free to, you know, subscribe, like, ring the bell for notifications, all that stuff. And mostly, leave me your comments. I would love to hear other people's ideas on future videos, as well as maybe they've played like a fighter rogue and want to tell me about how they did it, or just ask for advice on it in general. I think there's a ton of ways that you could try to, you know, achieve these kind of results. And honestly, it's just kind of like a fun build. Like, I really like the whole, like, swashbuckler, Princess Bride style, you know, combat. I just think that kind of stuff is really cool and really fun. And I think that, like, the combination of Battle Master, where you've got this, like, training and you're relying on, you know, like a brute force fighter, you know, you're relying on, like, skill and training, and you've studied different schools of fencing or whatever, kind of like in the Princess Bride. But then you're also, like, combining it with the rogue for all the rogue abilities, and you're kind of, you know, like, it's a great Dread Pirate Roberts. Let's be honest here, you know, that's him to a T. So you know, I just think it's a fun build. So anyways, that's everything I have. Feel free to do all the YouTube stuff, and I will see you next time.